All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill here.
Yeah.
We're diving headfirst into a topic that's been bubbling up everywhere.
Absolutely.
And today we're taking a deep dive into the metaverse.
Well, this is a good one.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating. But before we jump in, just a quick reminder to check out our past deep dives. You know, there's a whole bunch of episodes waiting for you, and I think you might be surprised how some of those past conversations can connect to what we're going to be exploring today.
It's all connected, right?
It really is, and honestly, sometimes those connections are the most mind-blowing part.
Totally agree.
Okay, so the metaverse.
The metaverse.
It's like this buzzword that just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It is, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it sometimes.
Well, it is a pretty huge concept.
It is.
I mean, we're talking about the future of the internet here.
Yeah, and how we connect with each other.
Exactly.
But let's try to break it down a bit. From what I've been reading in places like Wired and TechCrunch, it sounds like we're talking about this collective virtual shared space.
Right, so not just one website or app or game.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
It's more like a whole bunch of different digital spaces all kind of merging together.
And it's not just about looking at a screen anymore, right? It's
Yeah.
about feeling like you're actually present in those spaces.
Yeah, like you can step right in.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
It does.
Because now we're seeing these totally new types of communities forming in these virtual worlds.
Yeah, and, you know, we've seen online communities before.
Oh, yeah. Forums, chat rooms.
Social media group.
But this is different.
Way different. It's more immersive.
You're not just typing messages to each other. You're actually hanging out together.
Yeah, like through avatars and stuff.
Exactly.
So you could be in the same virtual room with someone.
Thousands of miles away.
It's pretty wild.
It is.
And the crazy thing is, it actually feels like you're there together.
Yeah, that's what makes it so powerful. It's like that whole concept of social presence that they talk about in the MIT Media Lab research.
Yeah, it's like even though it's digital, your brain still kind of believes it's real.
I know, it's weird.
It's like our brains are wired for connection.
Even if that connection is happening through a bunch of ones and zeros.
Yeah, that's the amazing part.
And I think that's why these virtual communities can feel so real and so powerful.
I agree.
It's not just about shared interests anymore.
It's about shared experiences.
And those shared experiences can be pretty amazing.
Definitely.
I mean, I've had some seriously unexpected moments of connection in VR.
Really?
Yeah. I remember this one time I was in VR chat
Okay.
exploring this totally bizarre virtual art exhibit.
Like what kind of bizarre?
It was like a Salvador Dali painting come to life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was wild. And I bumped into this other avatar who was just as confused and amused as I was.
So you bonded over your shared confusion.
Totally. And we ended up spending hours just wandering around this virtual world, making these ridiculous observations about the art. And it felt just like hanging out with a friend in real life.
That's so cool.
It was. And we still chat now, even outside of VR.
So a genuine connection that started in the virtual world.
Exactly.
It's amazing how these things can happen.
And you know, it's not always about these deep, meaningful conversations.
No.
Sometimes it's just about sharing a laugh over a silly glitch.
Yeah, or struggling to figure out how to use the controls.
Those moments can be just as bonding as any profound conversation.
I think it's because it makes you feel less alone, you know?
Totally. Like you're all in this weird digital world together and you're
for-
figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, and I think that shared experience can be really powerful.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the metaverse and these new types of communities that are popping up.
Yeah.
But what about the actual psychological and social effects of all of this?
Yeah. That's where things get even more interesting.
Right, because on the one hand, these virtual communities can be really beneficial, especially for people who might feel isolated in their real lives.
Yeah, like if you have a niche interest that's hard to connect with people about in person.
Exactly. Or if you're going through a tough time and need some support.
There's probably a virtual community out there for you.
There probably is, and the sense of belonging that you can find in these spaces can be incredibly powerful.
I can imagine.
And there's even some research suggesting that these immersive digital experiences can boost creativity.
Really?
Yeah, and some studies have shown that VR can actually help with learning and even stress reduction.
That's fascinating.
It is.
But of course, there are also some potential downsides to consider.
That's right.
Like anything else, it's all about
Right.
balance.
Right, because you can definitely get sucked into these virtual worlds, and sometimes it's hard to pull yourself away.
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Me too.
Yeah.
And that's where digital fatigue comes in.
Yeah, your brain just gets fried from all the stimulation.
It's like information overload.
Totally. And then there's the whole issue of blurring the lines between our virtual and real lives.
Yeah, like when you start spending more time in the virtual world than in the real world.
That can be tricky.
It can, and it's something we need to be mindful of.
Definitely.
So how do we find that balance?
Right. How do we engage with the metaverse in a way that's healthy and meaningful?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Okay, well, let's get practical for a minute.
Let's do it.
If you're thinking about dipping your toes into the metaverse, what are some things you should keep in mind?
Okay, well, first things first, explore with intention.
What do you mean?
Well, don't just randomly jump into any virtual world.
Yeah.
Think about what you're interested in, what you're passionate about.
So do your research.
Exactly, because there are virtual communities for pretty much everything these days.
Seriously?
Yeah, if you're into art, there are virtual galleries. If you love gaming, there are tons of VR games with really active communities.
So find your people.
Yeah, find your virtual tribe.
And once you've found your tribe, the next step is to set some boundaries.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Because it's easy to lose track of time when you're having fun in these virtual worlds.
Way too easy.
But you got to make sure you're not neglecting your real-life responsibilities.
Right, your job, your relationships, your sleep.
All the important stuff.
Yeah.
So set some limits and stick to them.
And here's another tip. Don't be afraid to be yourself.
In the virtual world.
Yeah. Share your thoughts, your experiences, even your awkward moments.
I think that's good advice for life in general.
It is.
But it's especially important in virtual communities.
Because those personal touches are what help build genuine connection.
Exactly.
And for anyone who's curious about getting started, VR headsets like the MetaQuest are becoming more affordable.
Okay.
And they offer a really great way to explore these different social VR apps.
So the technology is getting more accessible.
It is.
That's good to know.
And there are tons of online guides and resources that can help you get started.
So don't be intimidated.
No, jump right in.
Okay, so we've talked about our own experiences and some practical tips.
Yeah.
But what are the experts saying about all of this?
Well, from the TED Talks and interviews I've been watching,
Yeah.
there seems to be a general consensus that the metaverse has the potential to revolutionize how we connect with each other.
Really?
Yeah. And the key seems to be this idea of presence.
That feeling of actually being there with someone, even if it's just through an avatar.
Exactly, because it seems like our brains are hardwired to respond to that sense of shared space.
Even if that space is digital.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is, and this whole idea of virtual connection is starting to show up in our broader culture, too.
Like how?
Well, think about books like Ready Player One.
Yeah.
It's a fictional story, but it captures that excitement and possibility of these virtual world and the communities that can form within them.
And we're seeing more and more conversations about VR and the metaverse in the mainstream media.
Which shows that this is something people are starting to take seriously.
It's not just science fiction anymore.
No, it's becoming part of our reality.
And that means we need to start thinking about how to navigate these spaces in a thoughtful and responsible way.
I agree.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But before we wrap things up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, what are your experiences with virtual worlds?
Have you had any unexpected moments of connection?
What are your hopes or concerns about the future of the metaverse?
We'd love to hear from you, so drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Yeah.
hit that like button and share it with your friends.
And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our future explorations?
There's always something new to discover.
And remember, whether it's in the real world or the virtual world, it's all about building genuine connections with each other.
So let's keep the conversation going.
Let's do it. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See you next time.